We are dealing with purification of water, and in purification of water, we have seen the purification is by three processes: storage, filtration, and then disinfection. So we have seen about storage and filtration. In filtration, we have seen slow sand filter, rapid sand filter, their difference. After that, we'll see about disinfection. So what is disinfection? For a chemical or an agent to be potentially useful as a disinfectant in water supplies, it has to satisfy the following criteria. Which are those criteria? It should be capable of destroying the pathogenic organism. So what is the first property of disinfectant? It should be capable of destroying the pathogenic organism within the contact time available, and not unduly. It should not be influenced by the physical, chemical properties of water, mainly temperature, pH, and mineral constituent. What is the first property of disinfectant? It should be capable of destroying the pathogenic organism, and it should not be influenced by physical and chemical properties of water like temperature, pH, and mineral constituent. The next property, it should not leave products of reaction which render the water toxic or impart color or otherwise make it unpotable. Means we cannot drink it. Means it should not leave product of reaction. Means if we add any disinfectant, it may kill the bacteria or pathogenic organism, but it leaves some product which will be toxic to our health. So it should not be like that. So it should not leave product of reaction. Third property of disinfectant, have a ready and dependable availability at reasonable cost, which permits convenient, safe, and accurate application to water. So it should be readily available and in the reasonable cost. Next property of disinfectant, it should possess the property of leaving residual concentration to deal with small possible recontamination. Means first we add disinfectant, it will kill the bacteria or pathogenic organism, but after that also there should be some concentration should remain in the water which will deal with some possible recontamination. If any bacteria or virus again enters in water, it should deal with that. So next property, it should be amenable to detection by practical, rapid, and simple analytical technique in the small concentration ranges to permit the control of efficiency of disinfection process. Means after adding disinfectant, we should be able to detect it by simple and practical method. So these are the properties of disinfectant. What we have seen, the disinfectant should be capable of destroying pathogenic organism. It should not leave product of reaction. It should be readily available. It should possess property of leaving residual concentration, and we should able to detect it by easy methods. So in water work practice, the term disinfection is synonymous to chlorination. So there are mainly three methods used for disinfection. First is chlorination, second is ozonation, and third one is membrane processes. So these three are methods of disinfection. First is chlorination, second is ozonation, and third is membrane processes. So first we will see about chlorination. So it is a supplement not a substitute to sand filtration. So chlorination should be done after filtration. It is the one of the greatest advances in water purification. Chlorine kills the pathogenic bacteria but has no effect on spores and certain viruses. For example, poliovirus, hepatitis virus. But if we use in high doses, it can kill spores and viruses also. So, chlorine kills the pathogenic bacteria but has no effects on spores and certain viruses. Apart from its germicidal effect, chlorine has several important secondary properties also, like it oxidizes the iron, manganese, and hydrogen sulfide in the water. It also destroys some taste or odor producing constituents. It controls algae and slime organisms, and it helps in coagulation. So, apart from germicidal effects of chlorine, it has other properties also, like oxidation of iron, manganese, and hydrogen sulfide. It also destroys the taste and odor producing constituents. It controls algae, slime organisms, and helps in coagulation. So how action of chlorine happens? So when we add chlorine into the water, there is a formation of hydrochloric and hypochlorous acid. The hydrochloric acid is neutralized by the alkalinity of water. The hypochlorous acid ionizes to form hydrogen ion and hypochlorite ion as follows. See, water plus chlorine, it forms hydrochloric acid and hypochlorous acid. This hydrochloric acid, it is neutralized by alkalinity of water, and hypochlorous acid, it ionizes to form hydrogen ion and hypochlorite ion. So the disinfecting action of chlorine is mainly due to hypochlorous acid and to the small extent due to hypochlorite ions. So chlorine acts best as a disinfectant when the pH of water is around 7 because of the predominance of hydrochlorous acid. Means if the water pH is 7, the hypochlorous acid is predominant and it acts best as a disinfectant. But when the pH value exceeds, it is unreliable as a disinfectant because about 90% of hypochlorous acid gets ionized to form hypochlorite ion. Means if the pH value is more, the hydrochlorous acid gets ionized to form hydrochlorite ions. So if the pH is between 6 to 7.5 or around 7, it acts as a best disinfectant. What are the principles of chlorinations? The mere addition of chlorine to water is not a chlorination. There are certain rules which should be obeyed in order to ensure proper chlorination. So what are that rules? First of all, the water to be chlorinated should be clear and free from turbidity. Means we only add chlorine after filtration process. So the water should be clear and free from turbidity. Secondly, the chlorine demand of the water should be estimated. So what is the chlorine demand? The chlorine demand of water is the difference between amount of chlorine added to the water and the amount of residual chlorine remaining at the end of specific period of contact at a given temperature and pH of water. Means when we add the chlorine, that amount, and after the process of chlorination, the amount of chlorine remaining in the water, it is the difference between these two amounts. Means the amount of chlorine added minus amount of residual chlorine. So this is the chlorine demand of the water. Means how much chlorine water required. In other words, the amount of chlorine that is needed to destroy bacteria and to oxidize all organic matter and ammoniacal substances present in the water. Means in short, the requirement of water, that is chlorine demand. The point at which chlorine demand of the water is met, it is called as break point. If further chlorine is added beyond the break point, the free chlorine begins to appear in the water. So we should add the chlorine up to the break point, at which chlorine demand of the water is fulfilled. If further chlorine is added, the free chlorine begins to appear in the water. So what is contact period? The presence of free residual chlorine for a contact period of at least 1 hour is essential to kill bacteria and viruses. Means after adding of chlorine to the water, there should be at least 1 hour, which is essential to kill bacteria and viruses. It should not be noted, however, that chlorine has no effect on spores, protozoal cyst, and helminthic ova. But if we add in high doses, it kills the spores also. The minimum recommended concentration of free chlorine is 0.5 mg per liter for 1 hour. So how much free chlorine should be added? 0.5 mg per liter of 1 hour. The sum of the chlorine demand of the specific water plus the free residual chlorine, that is 0.5 mg per liter, constitutes the correct dose of chlorine to be applied. Means chlorine demand of the water plus free residual chlorine. That much of chlorine should be added in the water. So there are some methods of chlorination. So chlorine is applied either as a chlorine gas, chloramine, or as a perfluorone. So for disinfection, chlorine is applied either as a chlorine gas, as a chloramine, or as a perfluorone. So when we apply chlorine gas, it is the first choice because it is very cheap, quick in action, efficient, and easy to apply. So at most of the places, chlorine gas is used for the chlorination because it is cheap, quick in action, efficient, and easy to apply. Since the chlorine gas is irritant to the eyes and poisonous, a special equipment known as chlorinating equipment is required to apply chlorine gas to the water supplies. So that equipment is known as Patterson chloronum. It is device for measuring, regulating, and administering gaseous chlorine to the water supplies. Then chloramine. In some water treatment plants, we use chloramine instead of chlorine gas. Chloramine are the loose compounds of chlorine plus ammonia. So it is chlorine plus ammonia, chloramine. They have a less tendency to produce chlorinous test and give a more persistent type of residual fluorine. The greatest drawback of chloramine is that they have a slower action than chlorine, and therefore they are not being used for great extent in water treatment. So the drawback of chloramine is that they have slower action. So they are not used in great extent. Then perchloran. Perchloran or high test hypochlorite, that is HTH, is a calcium compound, means chlorine plus calcium, which carries 60 to 70% of available chlorine. Perchloran means chlorine plus calcium. This solution is prepared from HTH are used for water disinfection, but it is also not used frequently. The main used method for chlorination is chlorine gas. Then what is breakpoint chlorination? 2 marks question, breakpoint chlorination. The addition of chlorine to ammonia in water produces chloramines, which do not have same efficiency as free chlorine. If the chlorine dose in water is increased, a reduction in the residual chlorine occurs due to the destruction of chloramine by the added chlorine. The end products do not represent any residual chlorine. Means if we add the chlorine to the ammonia in water, which produces chloramines. If chlorine dose in water is increased, there is a reduction in residual chlorine due to destruction of that chloramines by added extra chlorine. This fall in residual chlorine will continue with further increase in chlorine dose, and after a stage, the residual chlorine begins to increase in proportion to the added dose of chlorine. This point at which the residual chlorine appears and when all combined chlorine have been completely destroyed is the breakpoint. Its dosage is called as breakpoint doses. So what is breakpoint chlorination? Means the point at which residual chlorine appears and all combined chlorines like chloramines is completely destroyed. It is called as breakpoint chlorination. 2 marks question. The point at which residual chlorine appears and all combined chlorines, for example chloramine, is completely destroyed. It is called as breakpoint chlorination. And the dosage, that is chlorine dosage which is required for breakpoint chlorination, it is called as breakpoint doses. And what is superchlorination? Superchlorination followed by dechlorination comprise the addition of large doses of chlorine to the water and removal of excess of chlorine after disinfection. This method is applicable to heavily polluted water whose quality fluctuates greatly. Means superchlorination means after dechlorination. we add extra or large dose of chlorine to remove the excess of chlorine after disinfection. Means if we add the large dose of chlorine, it will reside or residual chlorine is formed or free chlorine is formed, and it is useful to or easy to remove. It is mainly used for polluted waters. Then orthotolidine test, that is OT test. OT test enables free and combined chlorine in the water to be determined with speedy and accuracy. Means for detecting free and combined chlorine in the water, we use the test that is called as orthotolidine test or OT test. The reagent consists of analytical grade of orthotolidine, which is dissolved in 10% solution of hydrochloric acid. When this reagent is added to the water which contains chlorine, it turns yellow. The intensity of color varies with concentration of chlorine gas. The yellow color is produced by both free and combined chlorine residuals. You can see the test kit, orthotolidine test kit. The grading of yellow color. We add the chlorine in the water and match with this standard table of the chlorine. So this OT reacts with free chlorine instantaneously but reacts more slowly with combined chlorine. The test is carried out by adding 0.1 ml of reagent, that is orthotolidine 0.1 ml to the 1 ml of water. The yellow color produced is matched against the suitable standards or color discs. It is essential to take the reading within 10 seconds after addition of reagent. Next test is orthotolidine arsenite test. This is the modification of OT test to determine free and combined chlorine residual separately. Means in first stage, we cannot determine this separately, the value of free or combined chlorine. But by the addition of arsenite in that solution, we can determine it separately. But the errors caused by the presence of interfering substance such as nitrates, iron and manganese, all of which produce yellow color with orthotolidine, are overcome by OTA test. Means if in water there is a presence of nitrite, iron or manganese which are not gone due to purification, that also produced yellow color to the water. But if we use the orthotolidine arsenite test, that deficiency is overcome. Other agents used for this, like while chlorine continues to be the most commonly used sterilizing agent because of its germicidal properties and the comparatively low cost and easy application, its preeminence in water disinfection is being seriously challenged because of the discovery that chlorination of water can lead to formation of many halogenated compounds, some of which are either known or suspected carcinogens. Means even if chlorine has so good qualities, like it is germicidal, it is low cost, or it is easy to apply, but the addition of chlorine to the water leads to formation of halogenated compounds, which are known or suspected carcinogens. As a result, many chlorine alternatives are receiving renewed interest. These include bromine, bromine chloride, iodine, and chlorine dioxide. But these do not seem to present a viable alternative to chlorine at the present time. So at present time, chlorine is only used for disinfection. Ozone is showing the greatest promise and ultraviolet irradiation, limited usefulness as complementary agents for chlorine in water disinfection. So we'll revise in short. We started with disinfection of water. So what should be the properties of disinfectant? It should be capable of destroying the pathogenic organism, and it should not influenced by physical and chemical properties of water like temperature, pH, and mineral constituents. It should not leave products of reaction which may be toxic to the person. It should be readily available at a reasonable cost. It should possess property of leaving residual concentration, and it should be easily detectable. So, as chlorine is the standard which is used for disinfection, so the process disinfection, it is synonymous with chlorination. But there are some other methods also used for disinfection. So three main methods like chlorination, ozonation, and membrane processes. So chlorination is the greatest advances in water purification. It is a supplement, not a substitute to the sand filtration. Means the other steps should be conducted like storage, filtration, and then disinfection. So chlorine kills the pathogenic bacteria but has no effect on spores and certain viruses. Apart from germicidal effects, it has other properties also, like it oxidizes iron, manganese, and hydrogen sulfide. It also destroys the taste and odor producing constitution. It controls algae and slime organisms, and it helps in coagulation. So, how action of chlorine happens? When chlorine is added to the water, there is a formation of hydrochloric and hypochlorous acid. The hydrochloric acid is neutralized by alkalinity of water. And this hypochlorous acids ionizes to form hydrogen ions and hypochlorite ions. In this also, mainly hypochlorous acid form is the main disinfectant properties, having main disinfectant properties. But if the pH of water is more than 7 or like 8.5 or more, it is fast ionizes to form hydrogen ions and hypochlorite ions, so that hypochlorous acid cannot do the work as a disinfectant. So the pH of water should be around 7. So the main disinfecting action is due to hypochlorous acid. And principles of chlorination. The mere addition of chlorine to the water is not a chlorination. There are certain rules. Like the water to be chlorinated should be clear and free from turbidity. Secondly, the chlorine demand of the water should be estimated. So what is the chlorine demand? It is the difference between amount of chlorine added and the amount of residual chlorine remaining. Means in easy words, it is the amount of chlorine which water requires for disinfection. amount of chlorine that is needed to destroy the bacteria or to oxidize all organic matters and ammoniacal substances. The point at which chlorine demand of water is fulfilled, it is called as break point. If we add further to the break point, the free chlorine begins to appear in water. That is superchlorination. Contact period, there should be contact period of at least 1 hour, which is essential to kill the bacteria and viruses. The minimum recommended concentration of free chlorine is 0.5 mg per liter for 1 hour. And the sum of chlorine demand plus free residual chlorine, it is correct dose of chlorine to be applied to the water. That is chlorine demand plus free residual chlorine. Both constitutes the correct dose of chlorine to be applied. Then some methods of chlorination. Chlorine is applied either as a chlorine gas, chloramine, or as a perchloran. The most used method is chlorine gas because it is cheap, quick in action, efficient, and easy to apply. Since the chlorine gas is an irritant and poisonous, the equipments are used for application of chlorine gas. That equipment is known as Patterson's chloronome. It is also used for measuring, regulating, and administration of gaseous chlorine. Chloramine, it is the loose compound of chlorine plus ammonia, but it has slower action than chlorine gas, so it is not used for great extent. So perchloran means calcium plus chlorine. It has also slower action, so it is also not used frequently. Then breakpoint chlorination, it is the point at which residual chlorine appears and all combined chlorines have been completely destroyed. What is the breakpoint chlorination? It is the point at which residual chlorine appears and all combined chlorine is completely destroyed. It is called as breakpoint chlorination, and its dosage is called as breakpoint dosage. Superchlorination, if we add large doses of chlorine after dechlorination, it is helpful for removal of excess of chlorine after disinfection. It is mainly applied to the polluted water. Then some tests are used for the identification of chlorine in the water. So first test is orthotoleidine test. It is useful for identification of free and combined chlorine. So the reagent used is orthotoleidine. After addition of orthotoleidine to the water, it turns yellow, and the intensity of color varies with the concentration of chlorine gas. So yellow color is produced by both free and combined chlorine residuals. This is the kit of the OT test. The test is carried out by adding 0.1 ml of orthotoleidine to the 1 ml of water. And that color is matched with standard disk, and the reading should be taken within 10 seconds. Second test is orthotoleidine arsenite test. This is the modification of OT test to determine free and combined chlorine separately. In the first test, if the water contains nitrates, iron, and manganese, which also produce yellow color. Other agents, While chlorine constitutes the most commonly used sterilizing agent because of its germicidal properties and the comparatively low cost and easy application, the preeminence in water disinfection is being seriously challenged because the chlorination of water can lead to some formation of halogenated compounds, some of which are either known as or suspected carcinogens. So to overcome that, some other substances are used for disinfection, like bromine chloride, iodine, chlorine dioxide. But these alternatives are not so used, so chlorine is the first choice only. So at some places ozone is also used. Also ultraviolet radiations are also used for disinfection. So we'll see till here. So today we'll start with ozonation. So we have seen first method of disinfection, that is chlorination. Second method is ozonation. The word itself suggests ozone. So we use ozone as a disinfectant. So ozone is a powerful oxidant and has many uses in water treatment, including oxidation of organic chemicals, and it can be used as a primary disinfectant. Ozone gas, that is O, is formed by passing dry air or oxygen through the high voltage electric field. So how ozone gas is formed? Ozone gas is formed by passing dry air or oxygen through a high voltage electric field. The resultant ozone enriched air is dosed directly into the water by means of porous diffusers at the base of baffled contactor tanks. So that ozone or that air which is passed through high voltage electric field, it is directly dosed into the water by means of porous diffusers. The contactor tanks, typically about 5 meter deep, provide 10 to 20 minutes of contact time. So what is contact time of chlorination? It is about 1 hour. But contact period of ozone, it is 10 to 20 minutes. Dissolution of at least 80% of applied ozone should be possible, with the remainder contained in the off gas, which is passed through the ozone destructor and vented to the atmosphere. The doses required to achieve this vary with type of water, but typically are in the range of 2 to 5 mg per liter. So ozone requirement for disinfection is 2 to 5 mg per liter. Higher doses are needed for untreated water because of the ozone demand of natural background organics. So in chlorination, the water should be treated first by filtration. Then only we can use chlorination. But in ozonation, even if the water is untreated or water is not filtered, we can use ozone. But here we should use higher doses of ozone. So ozone is effective for degradation of wide range of pesticides and other organic chemicals. So it is very useful for the degradation of pesticides and organic chemicals. Then third method of disinfection, that is membrane processes. First method was chlorination, second is ozonation, and third one is membrane processes. The membrane processes of most significance in water treatment that are reverse osmosis, ultrafiltration, microfiltration, and nanofiltration. What are membrane processes used in water treatment? Reverse osmosis, ultrafiltration, microfiltration, and nanofiltration. These processes have traditionally been applied to the production of water for industrial or pharmaceutical application, but are now being applied to the treatment of drinking water. Means initially it was used only in industries and pharmacies, but now it is applied for treatment of drinking water also. So high pressure processes, if two solutions are separated by semi-permeable membrane, that is a membrane that allows passage of the solvent but not the solute. The solvent will naturally pass from the lower concentration solution to the higher concentration solution. This is known as osmosis. So what is osmosis? Means if the solution is separated by semi-permeable membrane, the solvent is passed from lower concentration to higher concentration. This process is known as osmosis. But for water treatment we use reverse osmosis. Means you can say we use the force which allows the solvent to travel from higher concentration to lower concentration. So it is possible to force the flow of solvent in the opposite direction, that is from higher to lower concentration, by increasing the pressure on the higher concentration solution. The required pressure is known as osmotic pressure, and the process is known as reverse osmosis. So this process is used for disinfection. Means we use the process of reverse osmosis. Normally osmosis means the solvent travels from lower concentration to higher concentration, but by applying pressure to the higher concentration solution, we forces the water or forces the solvent to flow from higher concentration to lower concentration. That pressure which we apply, it is called as osmotic pressure, and the process is known as reverse osmosis. Then typical operating pressure, that is osmotic pressure, it ranges from 15 to 50 bar. Bar is the unit of pressure. So 15 to 50 bar. Reverse osmosis rejects monovalent ions and organic of molecular weight which are greater than 50 daltons. So membrane pore sizes are less than 0.002 micrometer. So reverse osmosis rejects the monovalent ions and organics of molecular weight which are greater than 50 daltons. The most common application of reverse osmosis is desalination of brackish water and seawater. So it is mostly used for the desalination, means for the purification of seawater or the water which contains more minerals. So desalination of brackish water and seawater. Then second process is nanofiltration. Nanofiltration uses a membrane with properties between those of reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration membrane. Here pore sizes are typically 0.001 to 0.001 micrometer. So nanofiltration uses the membrane with properties between reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration membrane. Here pore sizes are 0.001 to 0.01 micrometer. Nanofiltration membranes allows monovalent ions such as sodium, potassium to pass but reject a high proportion of divalent ions such as calcium and magnesium and some higher molecular weight organics. Means if we use the filtration or nanofiltration membrane that allows monovalent ions to pass like sodium and potassium, but it rejects the divalent ions such as calcium, magnesium and some molecules which has high molecular weight. Here operating pressure is typically about 5 bar. In reverse osmosis it is 5 to 50 bar. Here in nanofiltration it is of about 5 bar. Nanofiltration may be effective for the removal of color forming organic compounds also. So nanofiltration it is also effective for the removal of color forming organic compounds. Then lower pressure processes. So in high pressure processes there is a reverse osmosis and nanofiltration. Then lower pressure processes, here it includes ultrafiltration. So ultrafiltration it is also similar like reverse osmosis, but the membrane has large pore sizes, that is about 0.002 to 0.03 micrometer, and it operates at lower pressure. In reverse osmosis and nanofiltration we require high pressure or more pressure, but in ultrafiltration it is also same like reverse osmosis. Means here also we can give pressure by which solvent travels from higher concentration to lower concentration, but here is the difference that the membrane has larger pore sizes, that is 0.002 to 0.03 micrometer. Ultrafiltration membranes rejects organic molecules of molecular weight about 800 daltons and usually operate at pressure which is less than 5 bar. So what is the pressure required in osmosis? It is 15 to 50 bar. In nanofiltration it is about 5 bar, and in ultrafiltration it is less than 5 bar. Then microfiltration, it is the direct extension of conventional filtration into the sub-micrometer range. Microfiltration membranes have pore sizes typically in the range of 0.01 to 12 micrometer, and it do not separate molecules but rejects colloidal and suspended material, and here the pressure is 1 to 2 bar. So microfiltration, here membrane's pore size is 0.01 to 12 micrometer and pressure required is 1 to 2 bar. Microfiltration is capable of sieving out particles greater than 0.05 micrometer. So I have made a table which gives the pore sizes and pressure which is required for process. So first process, that is reverse osmosis. Here pore size of membrane is less than 0.002 micrometer and pressure required is 15 to 50 bar. Nanofiltration, the membrane pore sizes is 0.001 to 0.01 micrometer. See how small it is. And pressure required is 5 bar. Ultrafiltration, the membrane pore size is 0.002 to 0.03 micrometer and the pressure required is less than 5 bar. Microfiltration, the pore size is 0.01 to 12 micrometer and pressure required is 1 to 2 bar. So we will revise ozonation and membrane process again. As chlorination we already seen in last lecture, we will revise only ozonation. So what is ozonation? So we use ozone as a disinfecting agent. So it is a powerful oxidant and used for the water treatment, including oxidation of organic chemicals, and it can be used as a primary disinfectant. So how ozone gas is prepared? It is formed by passing dry air or oxygen through a high voltage electric field. The resultant ozone enriched air is dosed directly into the water by the use of porous diffuser. The contactile tanks, which are about 5 meter deep, and it provides contact time of 10 to 20 minutes. In chlorination, contact time is about 1 hour. In ozone, the contact time is 10 to 20 minutes. Dissolution of at least 80% of applied ozone should be possible. And the remaining ozone gas is passed through the ozone destructor and vented in atmosphere. The dose required is 2 to 5 milligram per liter. Higher doses are needed for untreated water because ozone demand is increases. Ozone is effective for degradation of wide range of pesticides and organic chemicals. Then third process was membrane processes, in which mainly 4 processes are used, like reverse osmosis, ultrafiltration, microfiltration and nanofiltration, in which also reverse osmosis and nanofiltration are the high pressure processes and ultrafiltration and microfiltration are lower pressure processes. So first we will see about reverse osmosis. So first we should know what is osmosis. If the two solutions are separated by semi-permeable membrane, the solvent will naturally pass from lower concentration to higher concentration solution. This process is known as osmosis. But for water purification, we apply the pressure to the water. That pressure forces the flow of solvent in opposite direction, that is from higher to lower concentration. That pressure which is required, it is known as osmotic pressure, and the process is known as reverse osmosis. The pressure required is 15 to 50 bar. Reverse osmosis rejects the monovalent ions and organic molecular weight greater than about 50 daltons. Here pore size are less than 0.002 micrometer. The most common application of reverse osmosis is for desalination of brackish water and seawater. Then nanofiltration. In nanofiltration, the membrane size is 0.001 to 0.01 micrometer. It allows the monovalent ions such as sodium and potassium to pass, but it rejects divalent ions, that is calcium and magnesium, and the molecules which has higher molecular weight. Its pressure is about 5 bar. It is also effective for the removal of color forming organic compounds. Then lower pressure processes is ultrafiltration. It is also similar like reverse osmosis, but membrane pore size is about 0.002 to 0.03 micrometer, and it requires lower pressure, that is less than 5 bar. It rejects the molecules of weight above 800 daltons. Microfiltration is the direct extension of conventional filtration into the sub-micrometer range. So in microfiltration membranes, pore size is 0.01 to 12 micrometer and the pressure required is 1 to 2 bar. So here is the differential table for pore sizes and pressure. That is reverse osmosis. The pore sizes is less than 0.002 micrometer and pressure required is 15 to 50 bar. In nanofiltration, membrane pore size is 0.001 to 0.01 micrometer and pressure is 5 bar. Ultrafiltration, membrane pore size is 0.002 to 0.03 micrometer and pressure is less than 5 bar. And in microfiltration, membrane pore size is 0.01 to 12 micrometer and pressure is about 1 to 2 bar. Here we completed the disinfection and we completed the purification on large scale. So if any doubt, you can message me or call me personally. Give me attendance whenever possible. Thank you.